This is In the Circle on Fast Pitch News.
And we welcome you to our first D2 Tuesday officially of the regular season. The opening week is in the books. And now we have a chance to take a look at some of the teams, some of the players, and the conferences that we're going to be keeping our eye on as we progress forward, as the road to Chattanooga has officially begun. Welcome, everybody. Victor Anderson here with you. Glad you're hanging out with us on this Tuesday afternoon on our In the Circle YouTube channel, which you will find us each and every Tuesday up until a national champion is crowned in late May. You know what to do. Hit that notification, hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any of the content we got out for you here on In the Circle. Of course, our episodes, our podcasts, we are on fire as we get closer to the start of the Division 1 season. But hey, Division 2 is already ahead of the curve, and we're going to start Week 2 this week. But before we get ready to talk about Week 2, let's take a look back at Week 1. And a team that made a lot of noise on the national landscape is in the Lone Star Conference. And you're probably thinking, well, you're probably going to talk about Texas Tyler again, and well, rightfully so. But there's a team that could be emerging as a dark horse contender, and that's the Eagles of Oklahoma Christian. They went 5-1 this past weekend, and they had a tremendous showing at the D2 Spring Invitational, which was held in Conroe, Texas. And they had a tremendous performance by Peyton Foster. She went 3-0 this past weekend, beating number 13 Augustana, number 8 Central Oklahoma, and Metro State in the process. So a tremendous opening week for Peyton and Central Oklahoma. And this is a Central Oklahoma team that last year, 39-15 overall, 22-8 in the conference. They finished in a three-way tie for fourth. And I just get the feeling that this is an Eagle team that they are really finding. This is an Eagle team that I really feel that they're finding their way. They're finding their groove right now. We mentioned those big wins against Augustana, Central Oklahoma, and Metro State. And as you look at the schedule, they start Lone Star Conference play this weekend with this 3-game set versus Western New Mexico. And then they have St. Edwards the following weekend. Now, if you didn't listen to us on our D2 Tuesday opener, the Lone Star Conference everybody will be playing everyone in the conference. So it's going to be a true round robin. So for Oklahoma Christian to get those wins when they did in the D2 Spring Invitational, it will certainly boost their confidence as they get ready to go into conference play. Notable dates for them. They take on Texas A&M Kingsville the next to last week of the regular season. That's April 21st to 23rd in Kingsville. And then they end the regular season hosting St. Mary's April 28th and 29th. The doubleheader will be on that Friday, the 28th. I mentioned Texas Tyler. They go to Tyler, Texas, March 25th and 26th. But all the big series that they have, with the exception of Angelo State and Lubbock Christian, those series are going to be on the road. Angelo State, that's going to be. Listen to this stretch for Oklahoma Christian. March 11th and 12th, they host Angelo State. St. Patrick's Day weekend, 17th and 18th, they go to West Texas A&M to take on that powerful lineup. They host Texas Permian Basin for a midweek conference series. I mentioned Texas Tyler on the road at Tyler, the 25th and the 26th of March. They take on Midwestern State at home. They have a non-conference game versus Oklahoma Baptist. Texas Women's, Eastern New Mexico, Northwestern State. And then we mentioned that back-to-back 3-game set to end the season with Texas A&M Kingsville and St. Mary's. So for Oklahoma Christian, they have an opportunity to really get themselves on the right foot in the Lone Star Conference, especially given how they're going to be starting the conference season with Western New Mexico, who finished at the bottom of the Lone Star Conference last year. Now let's take a look at one of the D2 conferences that we'll be shining a spotlight on, our kind of a conference spotlight for D2 Tuesday. We'll be doing that. We're going to be highlighting all conferences in Division 2 during our D2 Tuesday throughout the year. So today we're going to be looking at the GLIAC. That's the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. Not to be confused with the GLVC, the Great Lakes Valley Conference, which we'll be talking about in a few weeks. Now, the GLIAC has been dominated over the last few years by Deanna Callahan and Grand Valley State. And no real surprise, Grand Valley State reigns supreme at the top of the rankings. They are the preseason pick, receiving 6 of the 7 first-place votes. The other one going to Saginaw Valley State. Purdue Northwest comes in 3rd. Davenport is 4th. Wayne State, Ferris State, and Parkside round out the 7-team league in the GLIAC. If you really think about the GLIAC last year, we all know what Saginaw Valley State they can do. Led by Lydia Goebel, one of the top players in the conference. It feels like, ever since she's come into the program, ever since she's come into Division II, we have been singing her praises, and rightfully so, with what she's been doing with the conference and with Grand Valley State. However, it was Saginaw Valley State who won the GLIAC tournament championship last year, and they did so in very impressive fashion. They knocked off Wayne State in 8 innings in the quarterfinal, beat Ferris State in the semifinal, and then beat Grand Valley State and beat them handily in the championship game on Sunday to get themselves to the championship. Now, that opening day on Friday, Mother Nature had something to do about it, so that day was postponed. So Saginaw Valley State, they're not going to be afraid of what Grand Valley State will be offering for them in 2023, and I'll be fascinated to see what Grand Valley State and Saginaw Valley State can do in terms of, one, how they're going to be handling each other. Saginaw Valley State will kick off their season at the end of the month as we playing in the tournament in the Dome in Rosemont, Illinois. They'll be taking on Upper Iowa, Winona State, Lewis, Truman, Minnesota Duluth, and Walsh. And they'll be coming down to the Sunshine State for the spring games. They'll be playing in Claremont from March the 5th through March the 11th. A very intriguing game I'll be keeping my eye on. They'll be taking on Minnesota State Monday, March the 6th. That's in Claremont. And then they have another showdown versus Illinois Springfield and Missouri St. Louis to finish off their trip to Florida. That's on Saturday, March 11th. And by the way, if you're wondering when they play Grand Valley State, they host Grand Valley State at home Saturday, April the 8th. And then they make the return trip to Grand Valley State on April the 19th. So the GLIVC, they have the home and home with all conference opponents. And I am looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. And this is a Saginaw Valley State team that when you look at the roster, you look at the team they had coming back, they have a tremendous amount of talent. We talk about Grand Valley State, rightfully so, but Saginaw Valley State last year, they won 36-20. And as a team, they only hit 29 home runs as a team, and they are very balanced. They are a team that they know what they can do offensively. Jackie Popko led them in runs. He had 45 hits. And this is a Saginaw Valley State team that they will rely heavily on getting the runners over, getting them on, getting them in. Jackie Popko and Megan Vervacki led them in home runs last year, each with 6. But it's all going to be about the pitching staff of Saginaw Valley State. They had a team ERA last year of 2.08. Julia Mundy, the senior who departed, led them with a 1.93 ERA. So Alyssa Munich will look to carry the load for Saginaw Valley State going in 2023. But don't sleep on Ferris State. Ferris State, remember, as a 6th seed, got to the semifinal, gave Saginaw Valley State all they can handle. They upset the 3 seed Davenport in the quarterfinal and promptly ruined any chances that Davenport may have had to get themselves into the postseason and making it to the regional tournament. So let's not assume that it's just going to be Saginaw Valley State, Grand Valley State meeting in a conference championship. I think Ferris State can get themselves in there similar to what they did last year. And what's interesting about the semifinals in the conference last year, the 3 seed Davenport and the number 4 seed Northwood, who or one of the schools who transitioned from Division II to Division I in 2023. They both lost as the higher seeded teams in the opening round to Ferris State and Purdue Northwest, respectively. So just some of my thoughts on the GLIAC. Next week, we will select another conference to highlight, and how we will do it. After much consideration and thought process, we're going to have a little wheel, and you'll see it when I show you later on this week, with all the conferences in Division II that we have not yet talked about. So we talked about 4 conferences already. We talked about the MIAA. We just talked about the GLIAC. And we talked about the Lone Star Conference. So we're going to take those conferences, put them out to the side, have the other conferences in Division II, spin the reel, and whichever conference we select, that's going to be the conference that we're going to highlight during that particular episode. So we are certainly excited to share that news and how that will be going with Division II. Now, the one thing I appreciate about Division II, and I wish our other counterparts would like to do, and we see this also in Division III, Division II actually allows a few weeks of games to play out. So you get a chance to take a look at the teams, see how they play, and a lot of it is against equal competition, especially when you have tournaments like the Gulf Shores Invitational, you have tournaments like the D2 Spring Invite, where you get a chance to play against elite competition early on to kind of find out where you are, where you measure up in terms of what your goals are and where you need to be as you get ready to start conference play. A lot of teams are going to be starting conference play in early March. Heck, the Lone Star Conference, because they're having a true round robin and you have 15 teams in that league playing against each other, they're starting their conference schedule coming up this weekend. What D2 does, they wait until at least 3 weeks of games have been played, and then they come out with the first coaches poll of the regular season. And I like this for 2 reasons. Number one, I pontificated earlier. It gives the coaches and those who are voting and those who are creating the top 25, it gives them a chance to get a good sample size of what teams may not be rated as highly, should be getting more love, what teams that are rated high are off to a slow start for whatever reason. And it kind of gives everybody, I don't want to call it a reset button, but it gives everybody, okay, it's like an early report card. It's like, okay, here's how you've been doing so far, and we all know where everyone is doing from there. But the biggest thing, the second biggest reason that I like the fact that they wait until a few weeks of games have been played before they rank the first poll for the regular season, teams are different. The teams that go into the season that are preseason are not going to be the same teams that are going to be ranked in the first poll. They're not going to be the same teams that go into conference play. They're not going to be the same teams when the first regional rankings come out late April. I say late April because sometimes I don't know when they're going to be releasing the regional polls, and trust me, we're going to have a full breakdown of the regional polls, what I think the region rankings should be, and then what the rankings actually will be when we do D2 Tuesdays later on during the season. But every team is going to go through changes. It's like, I don't know the proper way to explain it. Your team grows up. They have different parts of the maturation process. There's going to be highs, there are going to be lows. Sometimes the records indicate that, sometimes the records may not indicate that. But the teams that took the field opening weekend will be completely different than the teams that will be playing in conference play. And those teams that start conference play will be completely different from the teams that make it into the conference tournament. And then those teams, the 64 that are selected within the 8 regions, will be making it into the NCAA tournament. But the fact that we got softball to talk about, and the fact that we actually have games to talk about and teams to talk about, is certainly exciting for yours truly. Couple of notes I want to highlight before we close things out today. I mentioned Texas Tyler earlier. Our congratulations in order to Texas Tyler. Texas Tyler head coach Mike Reed picking up his 800th victory during the opening weekend. Got some help from JT Smith, Tatum Golf, and Shea O'Leary, the Texas transfer, helping Coach Reed pick up his 800th win. So our congratulations to him. Also, Tampa, we talk about their 1-2 combination of Gallhouse and Feldman. Tampa started off their opening weekend of the season with a pair of shutouts. And oh, by the way, they picked up a perfect game in the process as Tampa was able to take care of business. Mariah Gallhouse and Kate DeSimone combined to throw the 9th perfect game in Tampa history as they were able to handle business easily versus Ursuline, 8-0 in game 1, 14-0 in game number 2 with the no-hit, with the perfect game in the process. So, and the one thing I talked about with Tampa last week on D2 Tuesday, and I'm going to say it again because following Tampa for nearly a decade, broadcasting their games, broadcasting with Rollins and St. Leo in the Sunshine State Conference, if Tampa ever can get consistent offense to go along with that pitching, that can be something special for the Spartans in 2023. Granted, it's 2 games in, but the fact that you scored 22 and didn't give up a single run and got a perfect game in the process, that's a good start for Coach Cantor and company. And I would love to see if Tampa can continue that offense to go along with the solid pitching and the defense, which has been calling cards ever since Coach Cantor arrived onto the University of Tampa campus. So we will certainly hoping that continues. Also want to give a big shout out to Caleb Batts, who was the Sunshine State Conference Pitcher of the Week. 31 innings pitched, a 0 ERA. There's something about Erin Kinberger, and she always seems to find that ace in that St. Leo program. And you kind of figured it was a matter of time before she could be the ace. And actually, let me stand corrected. Caleb Batts had 31 strikeouts at the Gulf Shores Invitational, picked up 2 wins with a Blutarski ERA of 0.0. If you don't know what Blutarski and 0.0 is, well, some things aren't worth saving, and that reference is probably one of them. So we're going to wrap things up for D2 Tuesday for today. Again, every Tuesday around this time, we will talk about some of the storylines. We will talk about a team of the week, our player of the week, and the conference spotlight, and some of the notable matchups that will be taking place in Division 2. So that will be the order of proceedings from henceforth up until the regional rankings come out, and then we will adjust our flow accordingly. So team of the week, player of the week, conference spotlight, and notable matchups for the week ahead. Make sure you follow our podcast on your favorite social media platform. Don't forget to download and subscribe to Inner Circle wherever you get the good podcasts. And of course, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so that way you don't miss any videos we have on Inner Circle with media availabilities, D2 Tuesday, exclusive interviews that you will only find here on our YouTube channel. So we want to thank you so much for listening to our D2 Tuesday. And before I wrap up, I do have to say, we appreciate your feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We appreciate your feedback. That lets us know that you're listening to us, you're following us, and we will make sure that we continue to be better in terms of covering the sport. Not just Division 1, not just Division 2, not just Division 3, not just JUCO, not just NAIA, not just but college softball, but softball in general. We want to do a better job of doing that, and you communicating with us and messaging us and letting us know what you've been letting us know lets us know that we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And with that being said, that's going to wrap up our D2 Tuesday. We may be having a coach on the podcast for a future episode, so stay tuned for that. We will see what develops in the upcoming days. Up until then, I'm Victor Anderson. We hope you've enjoyed D2 Tuesday here on In Circle. Good night, Canada.